in a really vulnerable, raw place because I'm recognizing that when there's a rebirth, there is sadness. And I am letting go of my role as the hero, which is the role that I played as the oldest of 5 children in an alcoholic home. And I have slowly been letting it go, but today it really hit me that it's time to say goodbye to that person, that little person that thought she was responsible for everyone and everything, and that her sense of being loved was based on what she did instead of who she is. So I am in that space right now.
That is a rich place to start this conversation. Wow.
I find it
Yeah.
amazing the work we do over the years, how the saying it's like an onion that you peel the layers off as you go, and how they never stop.
And you never know when they're coming.
No.
It's not like I can sit down and say, I'm going to peel 4 layers. I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to have this all under control. And it's like, you don't have anything under control, honey. You be present, you show up, and then it happens. And I'm not always prepared for what I'm learning, but I'm willing to lean in and figure it out. I'm all in. So. Exactly. And it's that idea that as I step back, I'm able to watch destiny come for people. And I think I heard one time in the program that my parents may have, my problems may have my parents' name on them, but my solutions have mine.
I like that.
And I was part of my kids' problems, but I'm not part of their problems now. They get to find their own solutions. And it empowers them to become better people.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Soulmates and Suitcases. My name is Lisa Brierley, and beside me is my husband, Scott Brierley. And
good morning.
Good morning. And our podcast, if you've never seen us before, our podcast is a space where we have honest and open conversations about healing, resilience, relationships, mental health, and of course, all those journeys that shape us. And today we do have a special guest with us today. So we'd like to welcome Susan Goodson. Welcome, Susan.
Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. It is so nice to be here.
We're very glad and very grateful to have you on today. We're looking forward to this conversation. So I'll tell you a little bit about Susan and then we'll dive right in. So Susan Goodson, she is an author and coach who is passionate about helping women over 50 move to feeling stuck and unfulfilled to creating a life filled with greater joy, happiness, and contentment. Over 40 years with Mary Kay Sales as a Mary Kay Sales Director, helping women build confidence, self-esteem, and successful businesses. She's retired to focus on guiding women through the next chapter of their lives. Susan is the author of 4 books, so this is amazing. Letting Go of Shame, A Mother's Journey Raising Addict Children, When God Whispers, Lessons Learned in My Quiet Moments, At the Riverbank, and her 4th book, Fluid Living with Ease. So drawing from her personal experiences as a mother of 3 children who struggled with addiction, as well as her own spiritual journey, Susan helps women find the courage to speak their truth, share their stories, and discover their greatest potential. So Susan, welcome again. And maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am currently married to Joseph. Joseph is 21 years my senior, and he is legally blind and cannot walk without a walker. So we are having our challenges of learning to live in those chapters where limitations become present and uncomfortable. So it is not easy for either of us, but we are committed to doing everything we can to be there for one another. We have 8 grandchildren. We are leaving on Monday to go north to see 2 of the granddaughters and my daughter and her husband. What else about me? I'm currently, this morning, I'm in a really vulnerable, raw place because I'm recognizing that when there's a rebirth, there is sadness. And I am letting go of my role as the hero, which is the role that I played as the oldest of 5 children in an alcoholic home. And I have slowly been letting it go, but today it really hit me that it's time to say goodbye to that person, that little person that thought she was responsible for everyone and everything, and that her sense of being loved was based on what she did instead of who she is. So I am in that space right now.
That is a rich place to start this conversation. Wow.
I find it amazing the work we do over the years, how the saying, it's like an onion that you peel the layers off as you go, and how they never stop.
And you never know when they're coming.
No.
It's not like I can sit down and say, I'm going to peel 4 layers. I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to have this all under control. And it's like, you don't have anything under control, honey. You be present, you show up, and then it happens. And I'm not always prepared for what I'm learning, but I'm willing to lean in and figure it out. I'm all in.
So the understanding that your position as the oldest child, and that is now shifted. So what's the next sort of step for you? What do you feel is coming your way?
That's a very good question. I don't know. And today I'm learning to be okay in the I don't knows.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I always want to know. I always want to know what's coming next. How do I prepare? But in the last couple of years, I've realized that, God and the universe are conspiring for me, not against me. There is not another shoe that's going to drop. Nobody's throwing anything at me. I don't need to be prepared for a storm that may never show up. To be alert, but not to be afraid. So my next indicated step is to go visit grandchildren. Will I get a new idea for a book while I'm in the swimming pool at the hotel? I don't know, but I listen. I'm always sort of, like, I think that might be a door that's opening. Let me see if that really is true.
I love those things you said. Yeah.
It's funny how for years, even sober, like at 15 years sober, I thought the universe hated me. And
why?
because everything that could go wrong in my life always went wrong. Everything.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how hard I worked or how I did this or how I did that. And it wasn't until I went and dealt with the trauma that my life changed. And even then, like my therapist at the time, I'd go to the universe, she's Scott, you need to stop saying that because you're just reinforcing.
I know.
A few years later, I'm sitting back and I just heard what you kind of said, and it's like the universe gives us what we feed it.
Yeah.
And is there a transition there? Absolutely. It doesn't just go boom because your attitude changes.
Yeah.
It takes time, and it's almost like peeling the onion again. Just
when I first started going through my training, and I had a therapist, a female therapist, that said, you'd be a good life coach. And I'm like, I'm not interested. Oh, what's a life coach? And she said, well, this is a life coach. And I said, oh, great. Fabulous. No, I'm a Mary Kay person. I'm a lifer. I'm not going to be a life coach. And then a year later, my sister-in-law said to me, have you ever thought about being a counselor? And I'm like, would you please leave me alone? No, I don't want to do that. But I remember realizing that when the seed is planted and you get a second nudge, that you need to look at it. So
we're laughing because Scott so relates.
Go.
Yeah, continue.
Sorry.
Okay, so I looked into it and I decided, okay, all right, I could probably do that, but I was not in a good place. But I talked to my husband and he's like, you've been doing that in Mary Kay for years, Susan. That's what you do. So, he said, put it on the credit card and go for it. Well, all of a sudden I call them and they say, oh, they're giving a special tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay. I get money off. And they're like, yeah. And then there was another opportunity for money off. And then a Mary Kay director friend said, I want to do this. And, and at one point, God in the universe said, that's it. Okay. I've given you this much money. I am not giving you any more. You either put skin in the game or you say no. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And that was in July. And then 3 months later, my mother died. And then the next month, Joseph got pneumonia. And then the December, he started falling down. In January, he had to have a heart something. It just felt like everything was going wrong. But what I knew is that is often the test of my commitment. And is my commitment really strong enough to fight against these winds? And I thought, yeah, it is. So when I began the training, I had a coach. I had my own coach. And the coach said, tell me about your relationship with your dad. And I'm like, oh, my dad was an alcoholic. My dad was all about money. He just wanted money. He only cared about money. And she said, okay, and why do you think that? And I said, well, because, when I went to marry my husband, who they advised I shouldn't marry, who was an alcoholic, but I didn't care because I loved him. And I was 21 and I knew what I was doing. So he said, if you're not married and you get in an accident, I'm not paying for it. And I was like, wow, how rude. I'm your daughter and you wouldn't pay for it? That is so all about money. And she said to me, okay, so what if there was another possibility? And I'm like, there is no other possibility. And she goes, okay, but just go with me on this one. Okay, just imagine that maybe your dad could have meant something else. And I thought, well, I guess he could have said, I guess the message could have been, if you are not married and you move with this man and there's a problem and you get in an accident, you will not have insurance. And if you don't have insurance, you will be financially bankrupt before you even start your life. So maybe you need to rethink moving there and living with him. So we got married. And she said, so if that's what he meant, what would that mean to you? And I said, well, that would mean that he loved me. And she said, so the words don't change, but how you receive them does. So how do you want to receive the message that he gave you? That he was all about money and he didn't care? Or maybe he really loved you deeply. And boy, that reframe changed everything.
Yeah, it is ultimately the meaning we put to what we take in. However, what we see or what we hear or what we feel or whatever, we all put our own meaning to it.
And sometimes you need someone to help you create another possible meaning. I viewed my dad like that forever. So unless somebody had said something, I would have always felt that way about him.
Yes. We both our stories, our books that we wrote include all those things in our past that we question, like, why did that happen? And why did those things happen? And what was the purpose of that happening? And I recently, in the last couple of years, was able to share with my dad what I felt like was like my first memory. And for others, they kind of go, I tell this story, and I simply asked my dad. I was the creative one of four kids. I'll put that in quotation marks.
Okay.
I love the arts, and I love, doing the cartwheels in the front yard. No one else in my family seemed to be like that. And my dad loved to maintain our property, and we had an acre lot, so we had lots of white fencing around our yard. And
Oh,
I remember asking Dad at the age of 6 or around that age, can I help you paint the fence? And in my mind, my little 6-year-old mind, he didn't want me because I wasn't going to do it good enough. And so
oh,
I had brought this up to my dad a couple years ago, and I said, it's not, I said, I've already processed the memory, and it's not, it's kind of the meaning I put to it at the time. I said,
yeah,
he said, I'm so sorry, but like he doesn't remember, of course. This wasn't important in his life. So again,
right,
it's what we assign the meaning. But of course, when we're younger, and even when we're adults, we take this on as it's a part of us, and we
right,
sort of, ingrain it and make it part of
right,
our being when it doesn't have to be. You can change, and we talk about choice a lot, how you can make
yeah,
different choices. And so those stories can be a different meaning. Like
right,
I think of Scott and I, who began our coaching career several years ago, and we were certified and all this sort of stuff, but the timing never worked. And all of a sudden we're doing this, and we're going, we're loving this podcast sort of platform. This is our, I'll call it coaching, or this is just like your Mary Kay. So
right.
it's amazing sort of journey in life when you look back and you can have that gratitude of the things that never worked because something else was meant to work.
But
Exactly. And
is it the fact
it's,
that they never worked, or is it they worked
They
the way
ah,
they were meant
they
to.
meant to?
exactly. And it's that idea that as I step back, I'm able to watch destiny come
Yeah.
for people. We're so busy trying to find it. And it's like
Yeah.
you're missing it. Because if you would just sit there for a little while, I'll bring it to you. Just show up with the best you have, and I'll bring it to you. You don't have to work so hard to try to find it. And I think we live in a world that people think I have to go find it. And it's like, but you find it, and then it isn't it. And then you do something else and it isn't it. And then all of a sudden you end up doing podcasts and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I think this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows, like another cool thing is that we meet so many
Cool
people.
people.
And so those sort of conversations, connections, like, the big word is networking, but it's like the souls that we get to sort of meet has been
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. And I'm sure in your Mary Kay career, you probably are like, wow, the people I have met.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to go
It's
back.
um it's nice to be old enough to recognize or to start connecting the dots.
Yes.
To start seeing, oh, I see that. That was a bridge. Ooh, and oh, look at that. And that took me here. And then when you sort of step back, you go, wow, what a beautiful picture I am creating with my creator.
Yeah.
So it's magical, really.
Yes.
Going back to the nudges, why we were laughing, it was pretty
Oh,
funny. So my previous wife, we had a big falling out, and I took off to Mexico for a while, and like when I mean a while, it was a month and a half-ish or something like that. And I came home and she's like, I want to go see a counselor. And I'm like, okay, so we go see this counselor. Long story short, this counselor gives me a nudge to go see this doctor in the States, Dr. Amen. And I'm like, I can't go there. I can't go in the States. So just chop it.
Yeah.
About 5 or 6 years later, the marriage is dissolved. I'm working in a new industry. I start taking this gentleman that had been sober for years, a couple decades actually. I started taking him back to AA meetings. About 2 months into this, he walks over to the truck and puts Dr. Amon's book in my hand and goes, "You need to read this." So I read it,
Oh,
and I mean, I made the decision I was going to go. However, by the time I was able to go, I was healthier. So it was like, no, back burner again.
exactly.
Fast forward again, Lisa and I take this crisis and recovery coaching program together. Guess whose name gets brought up?
Again.
Dr. Amon. So Lisa starts
Wow.
doing some research into Dr. Amon, and we're in Thailand, and she's like, when we go back to Canada, you're going to the States to see Dr. Amon.
It's time now.
It's time.
Yes, yes. And doesn't it feel good to recognize that the message will still come? Because it's important that we do that work. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, he wasn't ready. Okay. And you know how many times in AA you invite someone. We invited my dad. My dad would go to meetings with us and he'd go, "Hi, I'm Jim and I'm a visitor." And we're like, oh my God, what does the man need before he sees that he's not just a visitor? And so finally, I had a woman in the program say to me, "Do you love your dad?" And I'm like, "Well, that is a dumb question. I do. Yes." And she goes, "No, I mean, do you really love him?" And I said, "Yes, I really love him." And she said, "Do you love him enough to give him the dignity to live out his life the way he chooses?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you mean, do I love him enough to watch him drink himself to death?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "That's a lot of love." And we went to a speakers meeting at Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach. And he went with my husband and I and my mom. And they said, "Does anybody have 30 days that wants to come up and get their chip?" And he stood up and walked to the front of the room. And when he died, he was either 38 or 40 years sober.
Oh.
You just don't know when that time's going to come or how many knocks on the door. But that's why God is so good, because he says, "I'll just keep knocking until you're ready."
Yeah. And to remind ourselves, everyone has their own journey to go
They
on.
do.
Yeah, and to be open that everything will work out perfectly. And it's so hard to even say that sometimes, like everything will work out perfectly.
Yeah.
I kind of
And
like the
so,
saying perfectly imperfect.
yes.
Oh, yes. I like
Is
that.
it
I like that as well.
the one topic I want to dive in, and I remember seeing you on Facebook, and because I think it's a really big topic for moms and dads today, because the addiction in the world, not just with drugs, with
So
gaming, with everything, is so high. Like,
It is.
and before I go on, I don't feel much guilt about stuff I put my mom through, because we won't get into that, but
If you're enjoying this conversation, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up, a supportive comment or question, and for you to subscribe to the Brearleys on YouTube so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. If you know someone who could benefit from this conversation, please share it with them. You never know when one story can make all the difference. And if you'd like to connect with our growing community, join our private Facebook group, Soulmates and Suitcases Podcast. Tell your story, amplify your voice. We'd love to have you there. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
I remember being 16 years old, and back then there was only one phone in the house, and it was on the kitchen table, and calling my buddy Saturday morning after riding a motorcycle home the night before, going, "I don't remember coming home last night. Where did we leave from?" And
Oh, wow.
this was on a regular basis, and that I feel guilt about to my mom, because I can imagine the torment. I'm not a parent, but I can imagine the torment that would create and the trauma that would kick in from all. Anyways, being a mom with kids with addiction,
deep breath. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, so when I started writing the book, I met a woman who was an editor, and I met her at a networking group, and she said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a Mary Kay girl, and I want to do a makeover on you." And she said, "Oh, well, I'm an editor, and I write books, and I think maybe our paths crossed because you have a book to write." And I'm like, "I'm not writing a book. I'm not, I'm doing, and it's Mary Kay, so let's get together." And we did. And, after that, every time I saw her, she said, "Well, have you thought more about the book?" And I'm like, "No, I have not thought about the book." And then I, became a wise, wise, whatever, not wise in a good way, but in a wise, like, I'm going to write a book about the S word. Like, I don't give a S, I don't know S, up S Creek without a paddle. And she's like, "Oh, that's great." I said, "I am not writing a book about that. I cannot put that word out there. I can't put it on a book."
Yeah.
But what happened was I was in the shower on Mother's Day, and my kids had all left. They left to go be near their dad. Now, their dad left them when they were 2, 3, and 7. And I got to deal with them during their worst years. And so they decided, based on some boundaries that I set, that they were going to leave. I'm going to go live with Dad. I'm going to go be near Dad. And I said, "Good." That's what the boys said. The daughter, we ended up sending to be near her dad after she went through a divorce with 2 young kids. And I was in the shower, and it was Mother's Day. And they all got on the phone and called me and said, "Mom, happy Mother's Day. We're all here together." And I thought, the only person who isn't there is me. And I'm the mother. They're with their stepmother. And I made a decision in the shower that day that I needed to write a book about what all this felt like. And I called my editor and I said, "I'm going to write a book." And she goes, "You are?" And I said, "Yeah, it's about my 3 kids who struggle with addiction." And she said, "It's the same book." I said, "Really?" It's the same book. What I learned is that I had to come to terms with my own heartache in order to let them come to terms with theirs. And every time I tried to help them, I wasn't helping them. I was helping me. But I didn't know that. I thought, they don't have an apartment. I'm their mom. I need to help them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't helping. So once I figured that part out, it became a little bit easier to say no. And I felt like I was turning my backs on them. I felt like my youngest son, when he was 19, was up north in Seattle near his dad. And he said, he called in the middle of the night, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was dark. And I remember going into my office, and I picked up the phone, and there was a collect call, and he was screaming on the other end. And he was like, "Don't hang up, don't hang up, don't hang up." But I couldn't see the number to push the 1 to accept the call. And the line went dead. And honestly, I could hear the voice of God that said, "If I let him get to you, he will never get to me." And I thought, I am in the way. I am in the way every time I say yes to helping them do what they need to be doing for themselves. And it goes back to, how much do you love them? And I'm like, do I love them enough to give them a dignity, to watch them destroy their lives, if that's the plan? I don't. So all 3 of the kids today are doing fabulous. The eldest one took 45 years to find his way into working for the railroad. He married his best friend from high school 3 years ago. 3 days later, he was in Bakersfield, California, going through training, and he is now a conductor and an engineer. I never could have guessed that would be where he landed. My daughter's sober birthday is today.
Oh,
I forgot to call her. 20 years.
Well, look, you're
And
celebrating with the world.
yeah, she was addicted to meth, and she is now running a hospice program north. She went and got her nurse's degree, and she did all that when she left here. I have to tell you this quick story. Katie got thrown out of her home when her daughters were like a year and a half and 3.5. And she called me and she said, I have no place to live. I got to come home. And so I said, okay, you know, come on home. And then my husband, who is her stepdad, said, okay, she can live here. This was Friday. And so the little girls are in the house and he said, okay, let's do this. Well, and we had talked about this before. If something happens, they can live here for 6 months and they can save their money. And, you know, Katie works and it'll be good. So on Sunday morning, 2 days later, Joseph sits Katie down in a chair in the back room and he says, Katie, I have something to say. And he said, there's nothing for you here. You should go north and be near your dad. And I was like, excuse me? We talked about this. She's going to stay. And he said, but there's nothing for her here. And I said, but there's me. And he said, you're not the mother anymore. She is. And she needs to take her children to a safe place. And this is not it. There's too much going on around her. So she went north. And she got clean and she went to school and she became a nurse. If I'd had it my way, she would have stayed here. Wow. But that was not the plan. And the youngest one and I are very much alike, deep feeling, empathetic, hardworking. And he fell from a chairlift on Christmas Day. I mean, the day before Christmas, 20 years ago. And called me and said, I've fallen from a chairlift. I've broken my back. You need to come. And so I said to my husband, we need to get in the car and we need to go to Oregon. And he said, I can't. And I said, what do you mean you can't? And he said, there's something wrong with me. I can't see right. And you go. And I said, no, I am not going without you. I said, I'm your wife. Sean has a wife. And I remember his wife calling me and Sean said, Mom, you need to come. And I remember his wife saying to me, I want to be the one that wakes up when he gets out of surgery. I don't want you to be the one. I'm the one. And so I didn't go. And I didn't go until we found out if my husband had a brain tumor or not. And he didn't. Thank goodness. He had a form of muscular dystrophy. But we went a week later and got him out of the hospital in a, cage. He had to be put in a cage and they had to do all this surgery and, and he struggled and he was angry and he was limited. And today he is amazing. He's still married to his bride. He has a almost 21-year-old son, our only grandson. And he says, Mom, I just want to be the best me. I just want to be the best version of the man that I was born to be. And I am so blessed to have these children. And the other part is that my ex-husband, their dad, and his wife have all done enough work to become friends. So his dad was my ex-husband and the wife that he ran off with, or I think he ran off with. He might say it was different, but that is how I perceive what happened. Came down to go spend a week with my oldest son and his wife, and we all had dinner together. And she and I are very good friends. And every Mother's Day, I send her a message and say, thank you. Thank you for how you helped raise my children. And in the bad years, you didn't kick them to the curb either. And she said, Susan, I was never able to have a family and I was never able to have children and I was never able to have grandchildren, but I have them now. And so, oh gosh, I did not see all this coming. Thank you, people. Thank you. There has been so much healing. And who would have known that that kind of healing can come from addiction? I mean, addiction creates chaos, creates opportunities for healing, creates growth, creates forgiveness. And I think I heard one time in the program that my parents may have, my problems may have my parents' name on them, but my solutions have mine.
I like that.
And I was part of my kids' problems, but I'm not part of their problems now. They get to find their own solutions. And it empowers them to become better people. So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
I know.
That's pretty.
Deep breath. I know.
Lisa's got a little bit of a story about that, because it's like, well, I'll go back a few years ago. First year in Thailand, Lisa comes up with this financial thing that she's going to do with her kids. And it's her money, it's not my money. So it's really none of my business. I know I'm smart enough, which I'm not sure how I got that smart, to know it's really none of my business.
right?
However, to help my wife see what she's doing is my business.
Correct.
And not that she needs to see it my way, that's not what I'm saying either. So over the course of the winter, I kept just kind of nudging her with stuff, and we'd have a little discussion rather than, this is the way I see it, but it would be like, this is what I kind of see, and this is what's happening, and see the situation right now. And by the end of she's seen, I think, that you were enabling your kids again. And it's like this world does so much of that. However, on the flip side, for a family like I come from, we were just like, and fend for yourself and be on your own. And like, I grew up on the West Coast. I grew up in Toronto, or just outside of Toronto, Ontario. 22, I was in Vancouver, BC by myself, living on my own.
Wow.
In terror that I had to pay rent. And it's like, and you know what? Somehow I never made it to the street. I have no idea how. And at like 20 years old, I was 20 or 21, I was a year and a half sober. However, did I stay that way? No.
Yeah.
It's kind of why I feel like I got a powerful story for young people today and for older people, because it's like I never gave up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there is a fine balance there. I paid for my son's furniture, for his, apartment, until he got kicked out for throwing beer bottles and making holes in the apartment walls. And I'm like, okay. And Joseph was very wise. My husband at the time was very wise, but I resisted that because they're my children. They are born of me. So whenever Joe would try to quietly, there were times where I was like, I don't want to hear it. You don't understand. Well, he did understand, but I wasn't ready to hear that understanding. I wasn't ready to let go.
Yeah, totally. It is about the place you are in your life, about whether you're ready to hear. I was just talking with Scott yesterday. We just got a new puppy, and so we have two dogs here, and we're busy because we have to watch the dog, and you have to go clean up the poo and the pee and the change this, and the counter's messy, and all this sort of happening. I'm like, whoa, that's deja vu to having my first children, where I was not as aware, as grounded, as all those things. And I'm like, maybe a little forgiveness going on there.
Yes.
Letting go.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's difficult to look at it that way sometimes, but I think it's very important to look back and go, oh, and that's the way it was. And that's okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm recognizing is that we all want to feel safe. I'm the oldest daughter in a family of 5 with an alcoholic dad and a scared mother. And I understand how I got my coping skills and how I tried to stay safe. And I think everybody's just trying to stay safe, whether it's overeating or drinking or using drugs or gambling or gaming. We live in a world that doesn't feel safe, and it's so unpredictable. And so now I recognize that for me, I'm letting go of the shame that I carried around how I coped. There's no shame in the coping skills that you needed at the time. If you become aware and you still use them,
Yes.
maybe you need to look at that. But when you're not aware, you can't shame yourself for that, because you do what you do in the moment because you want to stay alive, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Exactly.
However, though, as the pattern, we shame ourselves for a reason.
True.
We can continue the pattern.
Exactly.
I talk a lot about when I came back 23 years ago. I took 23 years in May, and
Congratulations.
I had years in and went out and years in. Anyways, so I hear all this talk like, oh, I relapsed. Oh, I relapsed. Oh, I relapsed. And it was like, all of a sudden it dawned on me somewhere. It's like, I never relapsed. I always made the decision to get loaded.
I chose.
And it was a decision I chose because all the stuff was in my plate or on the table for me to choose from. I could go back to drugs and alcohol, or I could go towards AA or NA or whatever thing that you want to go to. And because today if you had asked me then, I would have pounded the table that it was 12 steps. But today it's like, you know what? Your solution is your solution, not my solution. And that's one of the biggest things I want to put out there in the podcast. Now, do I think everybody could gain something from doing a set of steps? Honestly, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Do I think everybody in AA could go to this three-day self-development class that I went to and learn something? Absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, depending on the brains, how they show up, I should say.
Oh,
right.
You say you didn't show up.
Yeah, I didn't show up
It's
very
interesting.
well. My 3-day event, I showed up angry, bitter, resentful, prostate cancer, wanting to kill myself.
Oh.
And by the end of the event, I'm angry and just almost violently that they're trying to upsell me for the next course. And I walk out to my $35,000 motorcycle, and the only reason I say it that loud about that, I go to lift my leg over and I put my knee on the bike, and it's like, if I had to put $5,000 into it to be able to ride it tomorrow, my credit card would be out in a heartbeat.
Wow.
However, I won't take my credit card out and pay for, I want to go home and kill myself, and I won't invest in myself.
Right.
And I'm coming to this awareness. I can't use the word God. I don't like it.
Okay.
In the life I have. But I'm starting to become so aware of how much the universe loves me.
Yeah.
And it's even hard still at the point, it's kind of hard to say. And
You have to keep saying it, yeah.
it's like I just had an epiphany that, and I've said it, I think, the last 3 podcasts, because it happened 3 podcasts ago. I never got a chance to say goodbye to my grandmother. My parents wouldn't, I was stuck in the hallway and they wouldn't let me in.
Oh.
Well, I was, I don't know, 30 something or 40 years, no, it was probably 40 something years old, in a native sweat. And my grandmother came to me. And it wasn't until 3 days ago that I realized it was her saying goodbye.
Oh.
And it was okay. And I would never have had that moment if I had ever given up. If I had given up.
Right.
And it's why I want my story out there, because people just don't give up. Make a decision.
And sharing other people's
And sharing other people, like, and this is, I want that there's change out there. You can be different
Yeah,
and do
it can be different. You know, I had a friend of mine tell me, and it was very powerful for me. She said, Susan, don't ignore the fact that you were victimized, because you were. You were victimized, you were beaten. Um, but she said, you don't have to wear the label victim.
Yes. Yeah.
So don't ignore what happened, but don't wear it like it's a cloak. Like, oh, I can't change. I was born this way. Everybody was mean to me. You know, like Scott, when you were talking about when you start seeing through different glasses, you start attracting different experiences.
Yes.
But it's, I mean, but we can't pretend that we weren't hurt or traumatized,
Yeah.
because we were.
Yes. And everyone's, this is what I've discovered too, everyone's, like if we wanted to put it on a comparison, like level of trauma, what's traumatic, what was the most, horrific thing, like everyone needs to remember that whatever happened to you was what you internalized as traumatic to you and your body. So it's not about the comparison thing at all. Like
Absolutely.
my label is bigger than your label. It's all how we internalized it. So that's
Right.
important. And then when I think of you as an author as well, these books that came out of you, often books, will arise because of situations, because of awarenesses, because of things. So going through your titles, how did they arise for you? Because you have 4 books.
Yes, I was raised in the Catholic Church. So that's where my foundation of faith came. Um, I've always believed that there was a God. I never understood why the things happened to me that happened to me. You know, why my first husband left me and found another girlfriend, and then my second husband was a sober addict. And at one point, the kids brought me drug paraphernalia, and they said there's stuff going on. And I went to the police and I turned him in, and they came and arrested him in front of the kids. And the kids got mad at me, and I said, hey, you brought this to me. You wanted me to do something. So I did something. Um, and but I still knew, in my heart and deepest soul, I still knew that God had his hand on me. I just knew it. And so what happened is, as I continue to grow, I hear the whispers. So in one of my books, I was president of our local Kiwanis meeting, and I get this message. My friend, a Mary Kay client has just lost her father. And I hear this message. I hear this voice in the middle of a Kiwanis meeting, buy Gail a loaf of bread. And I'm like, look, I am busy. I am in the middle of running a meeting at Panera Bread. What are you doing? Leave me alone. Don't be talking to me. And so if you were inside my head, you would have thought I was mentally ill. But I said, no, so here I am talking out my mouth, and I'm having this conversation in my head. And I said, so you want me to go buy, a loaf of bread and put it on her doorknob in a Mary Kay bag? I mean, seriously, is that what you want? And the voice said, yeah, that's what I want you to do. I said, okay. And so I did that with a sympathy card. And she called like the next day, and she said, I had friends that brought the dinner, but no one brought the bread. And because you brought the bread, we got to break bread over the passing of my dad. So I know that God is there. I hear him, do this. No, I'm not doing it. No, not when I knew I needed to give up my Mary Kay business. I had a conversation with him, and I said, oh, you want me to give up Mary Kay? You want me to give up being a director? Fine. I'll quit doing 30% of the production. The unit will die in 2 months, and it'll be over. And the message was, no, I'm not going to let you give me a dead unit of people. No, your business is going to continue to make money. You don't get to give me a dead tree, Susan. You get to give me something that is alive and well, but you decide. And so I gave 52 people to my strongest competitor in the business, and I walked away from that position. So I know God is there because it wasn't God who let these bad things happen to me. It was the world we live in that did that. It was the people that did that. It was that my ex-husband who chose to run away from home. It was my second husband who was clean, who chose to go out and use again. It wasn't God and it wasn't the universe. So when I shifted that and I thought, nobody's out to get me. This has been allowed to happen because there is something greater happening that you don't know about yet. And the other thing is that I heard last Sunday that sometimes the dream that God has us living may look like a nightmare right now. But it doesn't mean it's the wrong dream. It means that something greater is happening that you can't see. So hold on. Like you said, Scott, don't quit. Don't throw it away. Stay the course. It's painful and it hurts, and you might be what do I want to say? You might be accused of something you didn't do, and you might have to pay a price for it, but there's something so much bigger, and we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, it's that when you said it's like the world, the people did it to you, but in many ways it's that reframing of they did it for you. So
Yeah.
Final pause. If you've got a message on your heart and want to be our guest, don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you. Visit forwardwalkingchoices.com, scroll to the Soulmates and Suitcases podcast section, and click apply here. Now back to the show.
Yes. Yeah, so that we're not the victim to it. Was it right? No. Was it wrong? Yes. Should they be held accountable? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what if they're not? How do I rise up, take ownership of who I am, and where the universe and God want to take me?
Exactly.
Show up. Yeah, show up.
It's the meaning you put to it. And then one of the things that I've really has been playing a lot in my mind is that whole, you can look at it this way or you can look at it that way. It's your choice. Like one of the exercises I put in my latest book was, if you stood in front of a mirror and you told yourself, 10 things you loved about yourself, how would you feel? Like what emotions would come from that? And if you did that for a year, like what would your mind start thinking? Now the opposite side, what if you told yourself 10 things you hated about yourself and did that for a year? Like the choice is yours. Not always easy, but the choice is yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah, my brain, I'm feeling like I had this big emotional release and I'm like, whoo.
It's been one of those days. It's just, there's a certain, for me, there's this, Lisa, I don't know if you had your babies naturally or C-section. I had one natural and two C-section, but that when you go through that birthing process and you go through transition and you go through those contractions, because I say, Scott, everything that happens to me that I look at as that's not fair, it's a contraction of life. Now, if you were a woman, you'd get what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. It's that squeezing in and letting go. But when that baby is born, you're in tears, not only because you're happy, but because your body is so relieved. You have worked so hard that your body just surrenders and just lets go. And you're like, oh, that's how I feel today in my life. Like after feeling that rebirth, and I feel in that place of incredible emotional release.
I can I get that completely with the life I have today, because you would never have convinced me that this life was possible.
And I choose to believe that what you plant is what you will reap. I don't know when, I may never see it, but the bottom line is whether you believe in God or the universe, whatever you plant is what you reap. And at some point, I believe that everyone will answer to what they did. And that's the only way that I can see bad things happen and at least live with it, knowing it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's that reminder of, a lot of people say, they want to leave a legacy. Well, how about living the legacy now and leaving the legacy? Let's do both.
I agree. I agree. We need to be kind. We need to love on each other. We
Yeah.
need to. I believe on my new website. I've never had a website before until now. I believe that we're all here to walk each other home. And when I say home to me. I want to be able to help people walk home, to walk each other home to who you were born to be. Because we were all born and created by something far greater than us, whatever you call it. And we all deserve to be loved, not for what we do, but because we are here. So, yeah.
Ultimately, yes. So
I want to ask you one question. Before we go, I would what would you tell a stranger, a friend that has an addict daughter or son today?
Oh, I would say it's not your fault. You didn't do anything to create that. They were born that way. And you can let yourself off the hook. And if you need to step away so that they can grow, you need to do that. I would say protect yourself and to love them right where they're at. But that doesn't mean you give them a credit card, and it doesn't mean you give them money. You love them.
Yeah.
That's all we are called to do, is love our addict children, not fix it, not take care of it, not to control it, but to let natural consequences happen. If we would let natural consequences happen, I think sometimes the addicts would be in a better place. Like in America, you get a DUI and they're like, oh, bad girl. And then you get another one, they're like, no, okay, we're going to take your license. And they drive anyway. And then they get another one. And it's like, we need to figure this out. I would say love them, but don't try to fix them.
And that, I'm sure that sentence right there is extremely difficult for so many people.
And I learned that in 12-step. I learned how to say no and mean it. I learned to say what you mean what you say, but don't mean when you say it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have done it on my own. I couldn't have done it without a tribe of people that understood what it feels like to love an addict. When I wrote my book, my editor said to me, and it's not the same editor that told me I should write the book, it was somebody else that was referred to me, and she said, there's a difference between a good book and a great book. And she said, I want you to tell these mothers what it feels like to have an addict child. And I got angry with her. And I said, you want me to tell you what it feels like? She goes, yeah. I said, it feels like I bleed out every time I take a breath. And she said, that's what they need to know. Don't sugarcoat it. It hurts bad. But there is help out there.
Wow. And so, Susan, this has been a very emotional conversation, but
it has.
so perfect. Where can people find you, and what's the name of your coaching services that you offer?
I offer coaching services. It's called At the Riverbank Coaching. And my website is www.atheriverbank.net. And I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and and my email address is sgoodsonmk for Mary Kay @gmail.com. I didn't change it, because that's part of my history, and it was just easier to let it be. But if anybody wants to talk, I am totally open to a free conversation about what it feels like to be the mother of an active addict and what it feels like to be the mother of a successful child who's figured it out. So I am here if they need me.
Perfect. And for those who are looking for your books, it's under Susan E. Goodson.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes.
And all of my books are on the website. So if all they take away is the www.theriverbank.net, they will have links to all my books there as well.
Perfect. And if anyone cannot get a hold of you, they can get a hold of me as well, and we'll connect with you. So
thank you so much for this chance.
It's been amazing.
It was fun to spend time with Scott, who sounds like my cousins. I mean, the whole time I'm like, oh man, you sound like Jamie. Oh man, you sound like Sean. Oh my gosh, you sound like Keith. So it was like going home to Vancouver where we all used to hang out. So thank you for that. That was like going home.
You know what? When I seen you on Facebook and the message in the books, and it was like, yes, I want her on my show.
Oh, thank you. I just believe that it is as it should be. And here we are. So thank you for the work that you do. Congratulations on 23 years. You were born to be great, and you are. And it doesn't matter where we come from. What matters is where we are.
Exactly. And thank you for being vulnerable.
Thank you. I did not, I did. Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We appreciate your time.
And as we say from Thailand, Kapun Krap.
I'll say Kapun Maka. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks,
right.
Susan. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Looking for more inspiration around healing, love, growth, and possibility? You can explore our books at payhip.com/Lisa Scott Brearley Authors. And if today's episode meant something to you, we'd love for you to follow the podcast, share it with someone you care about, or join our Soulmates and Suitcases community online. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.